Get in, nerds. We are playing World War II Armored Recon. So, I've just finished my conversation with Lieutenant Wilson, and am now headed back to the Ulysses. The day wears on. No orders come. Overhead, a lone airplane motors back and forth. The occasional boom of heavy guns over the sea tells you the French haven't given up yet. So, that's right. We got another Stuart that's wrecked. Um, and I can inspect the Ulysses, or I can begin tank maintenance. I'm going to inspect her first. Let's see what she's got going on. The hull of the Ulysses is intact, though here and there are subtle dents from bullet impacts. Though here and there lie subtle dents from bullet impacts. A brush of fingers across the cool metal reveals a few more of those. For the rest of the vehicle, it's in nearly the same condition as it was back aboard ship. Barely passable. Do I want to salvage what I can from that wrecked Stuart? This this is like an interesting question because like doing this on like this is U.S. Army materiel that I'm pulling off, but it's for field use. Yeah, we're gonna go over and do a little salvaging. Logistics plus two. You bring your men to the tipped over tank. There's already a band of other tankers swarming all over Little Red Wagon, as Sergeant Hopkins called it. He was in charge of a new crew. That's probably what did the tank in. The driver not knowing how far you can push things on a slope. This was also a new tank, an upgraded A1. Even though the gasoline may have spilled out, the oil is drained from the engine to stain the sands black. And even though the gasoline may have spilled out and the oil was drained from the engine to stain the sands black, there's got to be a few things to salvage here and there. As you consider things, Sergeant Lintz wiggles out of the turret with a piece of oil-smeared equipment cradled in both hands. Given the size of the steel exterior, the hydraulic fluids that drip from one end, and the recently wrenched bolts, that has to be a gyroscopic stabilizer. Hey guys, he says with a wide grin. You get the feeling he could swallow his head if he really tried, but he wouldn't because there's no profit in it. You're a bit late to the shindig, but don't worry, we left you a slice. Options are: does Knox know about this? How'd you get here so fast? What'd you leave me? Nod to him and get to work. Let me see. I I'm not an officer, so I'm not going to say does Knox know about this because I don't want to rain on everyone's parade here. Um, what'd you leave me? There's the telescopic sight and also those rubber blocks for the treads. Lynn says, wouldn't mind running a little quieter for our ears if nothing else. I was also thinking about ripping out their padding. We lost ours. Wish I had that gyroscopic stabilizer. We better get to it, nod to him, and get to work. Hmm. Padding. I'm not sure what that means. I confess I'm not that knowledgeable about the interior workings of a tank. I know the broad strokes, but not like I don't know how important padding is. Well, we better get to it. Let me see what he has to say about the padding. Verbosity slightly increased. That's another thing. Linz agrees. We've taken our lumps recently, and the fewer bruises we get, the better. Not to mention the possibility of rivet ricochets. We better get to work. Yep, time's wasting, Lynn says and gets out of your way. Consider what to take. Take the telescopic sight, remove the interior padding, remove the rubber dampeners. I'm going to consider. The little red wagon lies sprawled on its side, still leaking out gasoline and oil. Otherwise, the hull is intact. You and your crew could strip the machine guns, not that you could strip the machine guns, not that you need any. There's plenty of choices to salvage besides weapons, like the rubber dampeners from the tracks, the telescopic sight, the interior padding, and whatever else you can carry away. Certainly you won't get a second shot at this, not with the other tank crews looking to do the same thing you are. Okay, so probably we're only going to get the one thing. Um, I don't need a telescopic sight. I'm a cavalry up man. I'm going to be running in and doing the thing. I don't need no fancy telescopic sight. Let's grab the dampeners. Your men set to work stripping off the rubber blocks and strips that help dampen the clatter of the treads. It doesn't take all that long, and soon enough everyone has an armful ready to transport to the Ulysses. The other crews move in. Owens is still inside. Consider telling him what to take before your leave. Tell him to take the rations. Get him to gather up a few radio parts. Never mind, we'll just siphon whatever gas is left in the tanks. Oh, interesting. So we get a few more regular stuff. Let's show stats. Review my tank. What do we got? K rations, try some packets, soundproofing enabled. Okay, soundproofing enabled. All right, that's cool. Radio parts available, none. Radio operational, no modifications. Fuel. The town of Fadala, Mohammedia. Yes, that's right. Mohammedia is the current name of the town of Fadala. All right. We don't have any spare radio parts, so that seems like the right place to go. Tell him to gather up a few radio parts. Though the radio is undoubtedly busted, some of the parts may not be. At your insistence, Owen scoops up a broken set and carries it outside. From there, Nelson plucks up a few vacuum tubes that haven't busted, as well as other bits. Then you and your men are elbowed aside by the other tankers, each of them looking to recover what they can and what they can while it can be had. Sergeant Hopkins won't mind what we do to his tank. I'm glad Hopkins isn't still around to see what happens to the little red wagon, or all in a day's work. You know, Sergeant Hopkins won't mind. It's his first tank. He's gonna have others. Like, this is not this is not a one theater affair here. You know, we have to be practical. We're the American Army. We have to be practical. We're armored cavalry here. We have to do what we got to do. He won't mind. He'll understand. Hopkins will get a new tank soon enough. If there's one thing Detroit can churn out, it's rolling steel. All right. A flight of planes buzz high overhead. Weary platoons head south to occupy the town of Fadala. A greasy black smoke tells you there's been some fighting there before. Work continues. It's almost like training, only with the occasional distant boom of artillery fire reminding you there's a war on. The sun begins to set, and the cold sweeps in afterward despite the desert. Lieutenant Knox walks over as Owens turns the engine over on Ulysses to keep the oil flowing. I'll keep it brief, Knox says. We've got no new orders yet, and no fuel either. Are we in for the night, sir? We found some extra gas. Wait for him to continue. This is my LT. If I tell him we found some extra gas, we'll have to give it to the rest of the platoon. You know, I think if other tank sergeants have engaged in some good some good old fashioned salvaging and scavenging operations, that's for them to consider. And we've got no. This is our platoon. No, we found some extra gas. Yeah. Knox asks and then chuckles. Well done, but don't light any fires tonight. Just enjoy sleeping on the beach. No slit trenches? Are you worried about wastage or a night bombing? I'll write up my report by starlight. This is interesting. No slit trenches? Doctrine very slightly increased. Sleep under the tank if you want, but we're behind the lines now, Knox says, and then scuffs his boot in the sand. And this beach will soak up shells and bombs better than anything we try to dig. The lieutenant heads off, making a circuit of his remaining tanks and their crews in the waning sun. Your own men break out their shelter halves and put them out in the lee of the tank. That cuts down the wind a bit, and the desert blanket and the blankets help too. But for a desert, it gets awfully cold. I lay my head down thinking of home. At least I'm off that damn boat. Tomorrow is going to be another day like today. Hold on, I didn't get to actually maintain the tank. Okay, all right. So this stuff took a lot longer than I thought. All right. At least I'm off that damn boat. Tomorrow is going to be another day like today. Moving, shooting, getting shot at. This is what life is going to be like until Germany cries uncle. The folks back home would pale at the thought of this. This is just life in the army. There's got to be a promotion in this eventually. I'm a little bit of a career-minded fella. A battlefield commission. A straight jump from sergeant to lieutenant without having to stop for etiquette and elocution lessons. And once you're an officer, well, who knows how high you'll go. That intriguing thought rattles around in your mind until at last exhaustion whisks you off to sleep. The dawn brings with it a rising clatter as the infantry around you awakens. Small groups of soldiers huddle around paltry fires made up of cartons from K rations as they try to brew coffee. Their breakfast will likely be cold and tinned. In a few minutes, you'll enjoy the same. After a quick cold and canned breakfast, Owens turns over the engine of the Ulysses. It starts with a cough and ends with a purr. The other tankers do the same, and when they're done, Lieutenant Knox motions for you and his other sergeants to assemble. In one hand, he holds a bevy of little French signal flags. Each is but a patch of cloth with two colors and a distinctive pattern, the better to discern at a distance. Tokens of our success, he says as he passes them out. Don't get them mixed up with our own because we won't be able to understand the accent. Options are: we're going to war, LT. Do we get any gas in the night, LT? Ready for what comes next, sir. Wait for him to speak. Quietly refuse the flag. Interesting. No, I'm not going to refuse it. I like flag. All right. Let's go with... I'm going to ask about the gas again. Verbosity and directness slightly increased. I'll get to that, Knox calls back. A bundle of French signal flags is passed from commander to commander. A little token of war. You get the third pack. Token acquired French signal flag. Nearby, the infantry company that attacked the fire control tower begins to move out, heading south and east along the beach road. In the distance, the rat-tat of machine gun fire, an American one, is briefly answered by a sputter of a similar French weapon. Knox looks at each of you in turn. As you may have noticed, we had ourselves a little scrape today. The boss was pleased at what we accomplished. Today they want the same. They want us to assist the infantry. That's 3rd Battalion of the 7th Regiment, if you're keeping track. That's 3rd Battalion of the Cotton Balers. The 7th Infantry Regiment is the Cotton Balers, who we played as in Burden of Command. But to do that, we need to wait for gas. Alright, cool. Until we have enough to do more than stall a little ways down the road, I want everyone to prepare their tanks for battle as best you can. Options are: why is it taking so long to get a few drums of gas, sir? Sir, we could fuel up my tank by siphoning the other... Oh, come along now. By siphoning the others. Sir, I've got gas to spare. Yes, sir, more field maintenance coming right up. Or listen. I'll never be quiet. Ever. Yes, sir, more field maintenance coming right up. Exactly, Knox replies. So get to it, ladies. You and your crew focus on the Ulysses. After all, you haven't done a thing for it since rolling down the ramp. Though the dust, sand, and grime have set in, with everyone working together, great progress is made. Tank reliability immensely increased. All right. Hey, it's our man. Let's show stats here for a second. Okay, gunnery, driving, and mechanic are trained now. Tactics are about where we go. Leadership's up a little, observations up a little. Let's review the tank. Current condition, fit and ready to go. All right, beautiful. That is wonderful. No additional modifications, 1 radio part available. All right, beautiful. As you step away from the tank, Owens gives you a nudge and points. You ever seen anything like that? You follow his gesture and find a donkey pulling a cart, the outside of which is bedecked with caged chickens that cluck and flap behind the wire. Leading the donkey is one of the locals, a weathered, bearded man dressed in desert robes whose pale folds flap lightly in the ocean breeze. As he halts the beast, he unrolls a blanket's worth of cloth from the donkey's flank to reveal the tidy words, "fresh eggs." So this is our same man from the Hotel Miramar scenario in Burden of Command. Or at least he's the same visual model has been used to represent each. Go to the merchant before the others can. I'm gonna ignore the peddler and focus on other things because I gotta make sure I'm doing my tank maintenance. I don't want to get distracted again because I think in the future I need to make a practice of being a little bit more conscientious about, like, I'm not going to have time to do everything. So I'm going to ignore the peddler and focus on other things. If you were to talk to every peddler and local you came across, it would leave precious little time for fighting the war. Doctrine and career slightly increased. You listen to the radio to better glean where units are advancing and what the French are doing to hold them back. Not much, as it turns out. Just a delaying action all along the road to Casablanca. There's apparently camels, though. There's also a few French ships in harbor hurling huge shells into the advance, but a couple of Navy planes soon put those out of commission. Eventually evening comes. Nelson sleeps in the lee of the turret, getting a jump on the night. Lastly, Mendoza stares off into the desert as he's apt to do. If he sees anything out there, he's kept it to himself. A clatter rises up and you order the men back into the tank as a precaution. The wail of protesting axles draws your attention draws your attention as a pair of trucks labor over to the tanks. Lieutenant Knox takes charge immediately, securing half a dozen steel barrels that slosh. Some of those are water, but others are gasoline. Knox delegates the work to the crews, then summons over his commanders. We're in business, Knox says. Tomorrow's the big attack on Casablanca. Once again, we'll be assisting 3rd Battalion in making a play to seize the French barracks. No idea if they can do it, but we're to support them as best we can. Only options to listen, so let's continue listening. Doctrine and leadership very slightly increased. So dig down deep and keep your eyes peeled, Knox says. Now the French are going to be ready for us this time. Aerial recon reports I'm a Hearts of Iron 4 player. I say armor cars. Aerial recon reports armored cars, artillery or anti-tank guns, and yeah, a few tanks too. That might muss our hair a bit. Other crews give a nervous laugh at that. What sort of tanks do they have? What kind of AT guns? We already know all of this. Patiently wait for him to finish. What kind of AT guns? My character didn't play Burden of Command, so I'm not going to say this. Probably they're 25 millimeter, but they could have 37s or even 47s. Apparently they had some of those in Syria last year. And there's definitely 75 millimeter artillery pieces to worry about too. Oh, those are big guns. So just for context, 75 millimeter, 37 is the caliber of gun I've got on my Stuart. So a 75 millimeter artillery piece is twice as much gunnery as I'm packing right now. All right. There's definitely 75 millimeter artillery pieces to worry about too, Knox says. Once you get into the city, they may be shy from firing, but don't count on it. Okay. You might have something to say about those tanks. I, out of character, know they're Renault FTs. That's the only question I needed to ask. I feel like that I'm a sergeant. This is my LT. I'm not like an officer's officer. I can't just keep badgering our LT with questions. If that's the only question, remember the boys of the 3rd Battalion are counting on us for fire support. They've lugged their rifles, their mortars, and machine guns a long way, fighting thirst and the French both, and they're counting on us tomorrow. So give it all you got and make us all proud. No one disagrees with that. That night your men break out their shelter halves once more and set up near the Ulysses. Dinner is more the usual K rations. Canned bacon and cheese with a side of cheese. Wonderful. Powdered lemonade follows, packing more of a potent kick because Owens decided to sweeten up with a few dextrose tablets. The chewing gum that follows helps wash the taste of all of that out of your mouth. You know, it's calories. It's what a body needs. You don't fighting in wars doesn't make you healthy. The food is gonna keep you alive, and that's what it's got. It's got to keep you alive. It's got to give you the energy to fight, and them's the breaks. At least during this time period. I'm sure now we've done a whole lot of food science into what goes into MREs, but this is World War II, right? Fun fact: Italian American Ettore Boiardi made his fortune during World War II selling pre-prepared rations to the army, and that is where we get Chef Boyardee from. The Boyardee spelling was a deliberate Americanization on his part. He wanted it to be clear that because the state of Italy was the enemy during the time, during the war, and he was an Italian American. He wanted it to be clear that he stood with America, and that's why he stood with America, and that he was part of that he was doing that whole assimilation thing, and that was why in his branding he spelled his name in a way that was deliberately easier for Americans to understand than the original Italian spelling. A real cool guy with a real cool story, worth looking up. So I can turn in early, or I can chat with one of my fellas. Let's chat with Owens. I believe Owens is our... Oh, I need to look it up. Show stats. Review my crew. Driver. Owens is the driver. I think Mendoza's the gunner. I know Nelson's the mechanic. Yeah, Mendoza's the gunner. Nelson's the mechanic. Yep. All right, we're doing good. I am going to talk with Owens briefly. Owens gains a very little XP. You catch Owens looking at a book with a very French title, Les Milliards d'Arsène Lupin by Maurice Leblanc. Your driver is already at least 2 chapters in. Oh my gosh. I have a really, really funny story to tell y'all about Arsène Lupin, which is Maurice Leblanc wanted to use Sherlock Holmes in his books as a rival to Arsène Lupin. You know, a lot of countries don't have the type of copyright laws we have where you need to wait 100 years or whatever before you can use someone else's character. But anyway, Sherlock Holmes was still being written, so Leblanc did the polite thing, and he asked Arthur Conan Doyle, "Hey, can I use your guy for my book? I'm writing. You write books about a detective. I write books about a criminal. I want your guy to be my rival, my guy's rival." And I'm gonna paraphrase Arthur Conan Doyle's response, which was, "Fuck no, you can't use my guy." He was much more polite than that, I'm sure. So Maurice Leblanc did, of course, the gentlemanly thing, and he inserted a rival who was a lot like Sherlock Holmes into the books anyway, and he named him Herlock Sholmes, which is just unbelievably funny. Just because a man writes about crime for a living, it doesn't mean he's any good at it. And he tried to cover a plagiarism and he did not succeed. I don't know what became of it, if anything became of it, but it's extremely funny that that's what he tried. The olden times of the you know. There was a long period in history when you could sometimes just get away with something through sheer audacity. Anyway, the millions of Arsène Lupin. Here's my dialogue options. The millions of Arsène Lupin. Is that in the original French? Where'd you find that? Um, is that in the original French? But of course, Owens replies. Though there's plenty of English in there, as it's set in America. How well did the author do that? Is your French good enough not to need that? I take it Lupin doesn't meet Sherlock Holmes in this one. Oh, I have to say this. I've already told the story. I take it Lupin doesn't meet Sherlock Holmes in this one. Yeah, he doesn't, Owen says, but there's plenty of other game afoot, or what have you. I'm only a little ways in, but I'm really enjoying seeing the gentleman thief in action. Sounds like you know your way around money. Keep reading, let me know how it turns out. Sounds a little cliche. Let me know how it turns out. Keep reading, let me know how it turns out. You can probably already guess, Owen says as he tucks the book away. There's a reason people like these books. Good night, Sarge. Around midnight, the naval shelling grows intense and doesn't taper off. Rumor has it there's a battleship in port that's been swinging big guns around, but the shells don't come anywhere close, and you catch snatches of sleep between salvos. Dawn light starts to lighten the darkened sky. That was smart. Let me try that one again. Dawn light starts to lighten the desert sky. You wake your men. There is ever so much to do. Cold engines, warm hands, 100 checks to be made. Knox talks to the crews of the other 3 tanks in turn, getting them going too. No hot breakfast, Knox says as he strides over, stomping his feet to get the blood flowing. The field kitchens are a low priority, apparently. Unless you are an engineer, those bolt biters aren't sharing anymore. Hell of a start to the day, huh? It'll all work out. Yes, the infantry took breakfast liberties. It'll be better once we're on the road. Grimace. Yes, the infantry took breakfast liberties. Directness slightly increased. Yep, Knox replies. Apparently our doughboys ate those field kitchens out of hearth and home yesterday. The poor engineers had to eat straight out of cans when they showed up later. Everyone was heartbroken. A loud thunk turns your attention back to the Ulysses. Nelson pokes his head out of a hatch and gives the thumbs up. Ready for this? Knox says, as though it's really just a formality. I was born ready. Better be. If we're not, you'll soon know the reason why. Thumbs up. I was born ready. Sarcasm slightly. Oh, I don't want to have sarcasm. Dang it. I thought I was born ready is an enthusiastic, sincere response. Well, I may end up having a little bit of Lieutenant Murphy still in my bones here. Yeah, Knox replies. Just fire up the engine. Nelson flicks the Little Joe auxiliary generator off standby, and Owens spends an extra minute running through the startup routine. cranking the engine through one complete cycle. The cold makes the Ulysses snarl until the cylinders clear. Then the engine settles into a rough purr. One by one, the other tanks do the same, except for the Lady Magnolia. The only tank painted in desert browns, courtesy of some horse training that Sergeant Spanswick was somehow managed back aboard ship, coughs and seizes. When the cylinders are cleared, the driver tries again, and then the yelling starts. Spanswick emerges from the hatch, covered in oil. He's popped at least one cylinder during the startup. Knox heads over and calms things down, but from the oil that's leaking out of the tank, you can tell the Lady Magnolia isn't going to be an easy fix. Spanswick probably cranked his cylinders too hard. Might be colder out here than we thought. Probably sand in the oil. It's always sand. It's rough and coarse, and it gets everywhere. Someone said that a long time ago. Might be colder out here than we thought. Leadership very slightly increased. The cold does a lot to an engine, which is why the warm-up is so important. This could have happened to anyone, but the Lady Magnolia got unlucky this time. The crew of the Lady Magnolia break out their toolkit, as does Knox's crew off the back of the Chicago style. Apparently 2 sets of mechanics are better than 1. Even as you consider what that portends, Lieutenant Knox stomps his way over. Sergeant, he says, and doesn't wait for a reply, Spanswick needs his hands held, so I'm going to supervise his repairs. Hopefully we can get her going soon, but right now I need you to go down the road and make contact with 3rd Battalion. He passes over a civilian Michelin map marked with a black east of the sprawl of Casablanca. Figure out what their plan is and be ready to support it. We'll join you just as soon as we can. Yes, sir, we need every tank. Understood, sir, we'll make you proud, or salute. That's interesting. What do I want to do? I'm just going to say, understood, sir, we'll make you proud. Not too proud, Knox replies. At least nothing to write home about. Now get moving. You return to the Ulysses and pass along the orders via the intercom. No one's happy to hear that your only support will be Linz's bandit. Owens glances back at you. Sarge? Is the lieutenant? Okay. Ooh. Okay. So, our options are, he's doing what he feels best. He's doing what he feels is best. We've got our orders. He's chickening out. Nudge him to start driving. You know, ours is not to question why. Ours is but to do and die. We've got our orders. To fight until he can catch up, Nelson suggests. If he can, Mendoza adds, mostly to himself. Yeah, Owens says, then shifts the tank into first gear. With a clatter of tracks, the Ulysses leads the way down the road toward Casablanca. The sun keeps rising. Parts of the distant city gleam golden, but black smoke mars the view. Thumps of artillery from both sides merge with the distant whine of fighter planes overhead. Thankfully, all of the air cover is American. Those aircraft must be coming from the aircraft carrier the Ranger off to the northwest, though they could also be flying out of Gibraltar, now that you think about it. As you look up from explaining the map, a jeep passes by the other way, laden with men swathed in white bandages stained red. The first wounded of the day, heading all the way back to Fadala. Is it just me, or is this a lousy invasion? Nelson says over the intercom. We're doing our best. It's lousy in plenty of ways. I'm going to say we're doing our best. Okay, interesting. I caught some achievements. I know, Sarge, Nelson replies. I just wish everyone else would do the same. Ahead, you see an unexpected sight. A crude road sign, stretched canvas painted with bright white letters that spell out Tanks, 7th, and a big arrow that points down a dusty road which branches off the highway toward a portion of Casablanca. Alright, so that's interesting. A big arrow that points down a dusty road that branches off the highway towards a portion of Casablanca. I know that these were rigged up by Sergeant Washington of the of nickel companies, so I'm going to follow the sign. That seems right. My options are follow the sign or halt and consult with Sergeant Lintz. I'm going to follow the sign. Zeal increased. You thump Owens on the shoulder, and he takes He takes the turn off the paved road, heading down a dirt track toward Casablanca. Ahead of you looms a mammoth factory whose arched roof barely clears a high concrete wall. The American sentries out front wave you through to the main gate. And there, in the sprawling gravel courtyard, an infantry company is forming up for battle. A familiar officer waves to you, one eye cocked toward the still slumbering city. Lieutenant Wilson is looking just as ragged as he did outside the control tower near Fadala. Hey, Sergeant, he calls over as he steps to the Ulysses. His map, a Michelin not unlike your own, is in hand, and what looks to be an aerial photograph is tucked behind it. We're about to shake out and get into it. The two of you get down to brass tacks, discussing the expected course of the battle. The new captain decided we'll be sweeping through the north where the cover's good. Now it'll be good for both sides, but this'll be the best way to neutralize their artillery. We've already had my fill of naval guns, that's for sure. That's for sure. New captain, what happened to the Texan? Sounds like a good plan. I don't like the idea of a city brawl. A good plan for infantry, not such a great plan for tanks. New captain, what happened to the Texan? Got shot, Wilson says, a frown reaching to his salted temples. Don't think on it, though. We've got to get moving. I'll keep an eye out for where you might want to employ your lovely beast here. A messenger hurries close, panting and out of breath. Wilson tosses his head the soldier's way. Sounds like our scouts made contact. The infantry exit by platoons and squads, hustling out from the confines of the factory to take the field. A minute later, a crack of rifle fire erupts as they make contact with the enemy. Move up and accompany them, remain in support positions, stay back in reserve. I'm going to move up and accompany them. You thump Owens on the head and signal him forward. He levers the Ulysses into gear with barely a pause. Behind you, Sergeant Lintz mirrors your maneuver in the Bandit. As you wait for orders, a crackle of rifle fire erupts down the street. A muzzle flash, ripping thunder. The street explodes in a churn of flying stone and rolling dust. As you cough to clear your lungs, you see an artillery piece amid an open field between two low buildings. Okay, assess the situation. Drop down to the cupola and button the hatch. Target that artillery piece. Charge that artillery piece. Halt. Oh, man. I want to charge it so bad. We're doing it. Charge that artillery piece. You thump both of Owen's shoulders, and the man shifts to a higher gear. The Ulysses accelerates straight at the French. Those artillerymen look up in panic and then scatter. Like ducks, Nelson calls out over the intercom. They're just like ducks. Even Mendoza laughs at that. Then Owen slows down and nudges the artillery piece, pushing it over onto its side with a thump of steel and a little cloud of dust. The remains of the artillery piece is barely settled when a French machine gun stutters. An American soldier near the gun crumples. The rest of his fellows take cover. The Bandit guns its engine and rushes the enemy machine gun, ripping the enemy crew to shreds with bullets. Then it slams a high explosive shell into the ranks of the covering squad. Encouraged by that additional support, an American squad advances. Their rifles crack as they disappear around the corner of a blocky white stone building, and almost immediately come racing back, their arms waving in warning. That's not good. They've seen something impending, probably a tank, or wave back in acknowledgement. They've seen something impending, probably a tank. Though it's impossible to tell for certain, even from your elevated vantage, those men couldn't keep running unless there was something that could chase them. Observation slightly increased. By reflex, you maneuver the Ulysses into a protected firing position. Sergeant Lintz does the same in the Bandit, but halfway to a nook, his tank sputters to a halt. He's out of gas. The hatches open up as Bandit and Sergeant Lintz open up on the Bandit as Sergeant Lintz and his crew prepare to exit the vehicle. A moment later, the slanted shadow of a low-slung French tank darkens the window of a nearby building. In moments, it'll clear the corner and see Lintz, and you know what'll follow. Fire the moment it appears around the corner. Move up to protect the Bandit. Wait for it to expose itself. It'll target the Bandit first. Back off for better cover now. Okay, interesting. So, the Renault FT does have a pop gun, same as we do in some models, but on others it only has a heavy machine gun. Do I know what type of tank this is canonically? A low-slung French tank. Okay, so I don't know. This could be a Mark V. It could be a modern tank. The French had good heavy tanks during World War II. There were a lot of things that went wrong with the French defense of France, but they were doing it properly with tanks. I'm going to move up to protect the bandit. Is that sensible? I think the most sensible action is to fire the moment it appears around the corner. I don't want to get caught out. I can't like yell and go, "Hey, stay in the tank. There's a French tank coming." If it expose itself. I'm going to move up to protect the bandit. We're going to get up to some heroics. You thump Owens on both shoulders. He glances back for confirmation and you give it. The Ulysses drops into gear and clatters forward. The French tank clatters into view. It's a small thing, just a turret and treads. An FT-17 with a 37mm cannon as powerful as yours. The enemy tank's turret swings toward the Ulysses. Owens steps on the gas. The round glances off the right side. A screech of metal erupts as rivets shear off and ricochet around the interior. Something smacks your head. You look down in time to see a rivet fall back into the hull. Health decreased. Mendoza calmly looks at you. Shoot now. Maneuver around the FT-17's flank. Target or get to cover. I want to shoot now. Yeah. If I maneuver around its flank and it distracts it, maybe the bandit will be able to put around in its turret seam. Because I think we're basically in a tank knife fight here. We're going to maneuver around. Owen responds to your order and the engine whines as he shifts up a gear. The FT-17 briefly turns with you and then scoots off behind a building. You move to follow. Shut down the engine and wait for the Renault to approach. Shift quickly from position to position. Turn around and go right at them. This flanking maneuver is not working as well as I'd hoped. Turn around and go right at them. You thump Owens on the shoulder, left and then right. No guts, no glory. From your vantage, you can clearly hear the Renault clattering up ahead. Then you catch a glimpse of it down one of the twisting alleyways. You coordinate with Mendoza, target the enemy, and fire. A solid hit to the side sends the steel track sliding off, immobilizing the enemy. Then the driver hits reverse, rattling back in what little track is still intact. Fire again. He'll get about 10 yards. Give him a warning burst. Fire again. So this is interesting. He's thrown a track, which means he can't go anywhere. If I give him a warning burst, he might surrender. But his gun's still working. I'm gonna shoot again. I don't see a white flag or nothing. It's war. This is war. Fire again. Doctrine slightly increased. The shot is an easy one. Mendoza pulls the trigger. The FT-17 explodes. A lull settles over the battlefield, but it doesn't last. The hatches on the bandit are thrown open and Sergeant Lynch leads his crew out. They scramble for cover, swiftly reaching the safety of an open bakery. How much gas do we have? Owens calls over to Nelson. Nelson reaches back and thumps the side of the nearest gas tank with a little iron rod. With gauges tending to stick, this has proven to be far more accurate. We're not bone dry, but our dogs are barking, Nelson calls out. A clatter of rifle fire, a distant rattle of pops rises up. The infantry are still in contact with the enemy. Let's take a quick look at our stats. Review my tank. Fit and ready to go. Left armor damaged, rear armor damaged, turret damaged. Oh, we took a heavy hit. Fuel half full. Operational. Radio parts available. K rations. Little Joe's running. Return to the game. So, we've taken a little damage. If there's no more French tanks, we should be fine. Let's move up and fight. Doctrine, leadership, and career slightly increased. You thump Owen's shoulder and he gets the Ulysses moving. Not far ahead, you catch the telltale crackle of rapid rifle fire. At least several American squads are on one side of the street while the French occupy the other. Both sides are taking pot shots. Neither wants to cross and catch a mouthful of lead. An officer, a familiar one with plenty of salt in his hair, scrambles over to your hull and in the lee of the armor he hammers a hello. The damn poilus aren't falling back, Lieutenant Wilson bellows above the din in a clear voice. Can you kick him in the shins for us? Poilus? I know what that means. The French. Why aren't they falling back? Indicate we'll go straight at them. Indicate we'll flank them. Indicate we'll support from a distance. I love being in a tank. Actually, though, what's sensible here? Flanking's going to cost us quite a bit of gas. This is only infantry. Infantry are deceptively strong against tanks in close. Indicate we'll flank them. We don't need to flank them. We're a tank. I want to go straight at them, but also I can't do too much of this because if I catch a grenade in the top hatch, we're toast. I am also a little low on gas. I don't think we need to flank them because this is just infantry. I could just put some high explosive rounds in the building and they should scurry off. Indicate that we'll support them from a distance. Any cannon in a storm, Wilson replies, will pop smoke on our target if they're getting frisky. With that, he turns and scuttles back to his platoon, one step ahead of a snap of bullets. You tap Owens in the back of the neck and carefully explain where you want to fire from. He nods back and shifts into gear. The Ulysses lurches into motion, heading for a low rise. Once there, Nelson fires long bursts at the distant foe while Mendoza slams high explosive shells downrange. The French take their beating well, and it's only after taking a pounding they begin to fall back. Pursue them, stay where we are, back off, and let the infantry get on with it. I'll show stats. Review the tank. We're still half full on fuel. We'll pursue them. Observation zeal very slightly increased. AT! Nelson shouts above the din. Your pulse quickens as you peer out where he's pointing and find a low-slung anti-tank gun with a barrel bigger than yours just around the corner. Its crew sights down on you. Nelson fires a burst from his MG at the AT crew. You also squeeze off a burst from the turret machine gun to send a host of tracers dancing across steel. With the Ulysses in motion, Owen slews to the left at the last moment. Steel screams as the round gouges the turret in passing. Mendoza lines up another shot while Nelson slathers the enemy in bullets. The French crew takes the hint and crawls off for safer cover. American infantry swiftly pursues. The fighting subsides for a moment. To save gas, you have Owens idle the engine and begin the cooldown procedure. Soon enough, he's able to shut things down. Phew, have my men take a break, check our guns, reload our guns. Check our gas, reload our guns. Let's show stats. Review the crew. Gunner, Mendoza's okay. Driver, Owens is okay. Mechanic, Nelson is okay. Return to the game. Alright, let's check our gas. Logistics very slightly increased. Nelson reaches back and sounds out the fuel tank. It's hollow all the way down. Fumes, he calls up to you, and wishful thinking. Before you can consider what, if anything, to do about the situation, Mendoza tugs at your sleeve. I hear a Stuart coming. You raise up your leather helmet and catch a hint of exactly that in the distance. It's a Stuart tank, all right. Judging from the bright little signal flag, a twin to your own. It belongs to your platoon. The other Stuart clatters to a halt, and you can see the words Chicago style painted in white on the side. It's no surprise that when Lieutenant Knox pops up out of the hatch. Are we safe? He calls over. Damn snipers have been trying to ping me for miles. Options are safe for now, sir. Snipers? We'll be dealing with more than that. Where's the Lily Magnolia? Oh, sorry, it's fine for now, sir. Snipers, I've been dealing with more than that. Where's the Lily Magnolia? It's fine for now, sir. I kind of want to ask where the Lily Magnolia is. It's fine for now, sir. Leadership very slightly increased. At least some good to balance the bad. The Lily Magnolia isn't coming, Knox says as he clambers down off his tank and motions for you to do the same. Spanswick swears he had everything running smoothly last night, but there was an awful lot of dust in his oil. He's going to be a while, if ever. What's our situation here? Our infantry is ahead. The French are stubborn. The enemy has tanks and AT guns. Real low on gas, fine on ammo. We already know they had tanks and AT guns. Our infantry is ahead. The French are stubborn. I'm going to say real low on gas, fine on ammo. Logistics slightly increased. All right, let's talk gas then, Knox says as he motions a steel drum strapped to the back of his tank. We siphoned this from Spanswick's girl. He hollered about it, but if his tank can't run, then he doesn't need to drop. There's not much here, not anywhere Not much anywhere, apparently, but if it keeps you in the fight, then it's worth it. You immediately order Nelson and Owens to transfer the fuel. From the sound of it, only a few gallons are sloshing around in there, but that's leagues more than you had before. Guess he's still giving the orders, right, Sarge? Mendoza says quietly. Don't say anything. I have to think he's got a plan. That he is, and he doesn't know what the fighting has been like. Well, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk garbage about my CO. When things, I'm not going to talk garbage about our CO. Not in front of the lads. My goal is to keep morale up. I have to think he's got a plan. Trying to get Lily Magnolia going and grabbing gas when she wouldn't, Mendoza says, then rushing over right afterward. In the distance, the usual rattle of rifle fire is split by the deep booms of artillery. It is therefore no surprise when an infantryman comes running over to the two tanks. Sir, he calls over to Knox. Lieutenant Wilson says that given how the French are firing off their naval artillery like it was New Year's Eve, there's going to be a counterattack soon. He expects it'll be bad. Lieutenant who? Lieutenant Knox says he runs over to you. Lieutenant Wilson, we met in Fadala. Wilson, he's getting his Second World War under his belt. Not who, but Wilson. He's leading up ahead. Shrug and gesture to the messenger. I'm just going to say, Lieutenant Wilson, we met in Fadala. Got it, Knox says. Let's mount up and get rolling. He looks at the infantryman. You'll lead us there. The infantryman nods. Your men pile into the freshly refueled Ulysses. The engine coughs back to life. Knox takes the lead. You fall in behind. Ahead, black smoke rises amid the din of battle. American infantry trades fire with the French just a few hundred yards from the grand-looking complex of buildings. French army buildings, given the tricolor flags flying from every pole and rooftop. The deep-throated cough of naval artillery tells you why they're being so patriotic, as huge shells shatter whole buildings and gouge out yards of earth where they explode. A bevy of airplanes, white stars in the wings, zoom westward toward the distant harbor. Tiny puffs of smoke rise from there, and the French Navy doesn't fire again. Let's hear it for the Flyboys, Nelson calls the intercom. They really can hit a big enough target. Yeah, where they been anyway? Owens asks. Cut the chatter, you two. Flying off aircraft carriers, probably. Don't know, but it's odd they came from the east. Don't interrupt the two. Flying off aircraft carriers, probably. No, they came from the east. Don't know, but it's odd they came from the east. Scarred, a reminder of battle. Directness slightly decreased. Either waiting for a target or their first mission got scrubbed, Mendoza muses. I'd love some air support, Nelson says. Any day now. We're scheduled for Thursday after mail call, Owens suggests. Shadows shift amid the black smoke ahead. Long lines of dusty infantrymen begin to emerge at the edges. Then a trim tank bursts out, revealing a camel-painted hull at least as big as your own. Its sleek, angular frontal armor strikes a chord. R-35! Lieutenant Knox calls over the radio as he ducks back inside his turret. We can't take it head on. We'll split up, decoy, and hunt. Go left, we'll go right. It's a risky plan, but the R-35 has all the firepower and more armor than any single Stuart. But if it goes after one of you, it'll have to expose its rear. By your side, Mendoza waits for your nod before loading an armor-piercing round. Drop down to the turret so I can button up the hatch. No point in getting shot. Stay exposed so I can see the battlefield. Ooh, what an interesting question. I've already taken a hit from a, let me look at my health. I'm at health 4. Ooh, what a good question. I'm almost assuredly going to take a hit if I stay exposed. But it might be a while before we're in action again after this. I'm going to stay exposed so I can see the battlefield. You stay standing up at the cupola. It's only from here that you can see what dangers lie ahead. Zeal very slightly increased. Dust scours your goggles as you watch Knox's tank, Chicago-style, clatter off to the right. In the distance, the R-35's turret shift toward you. Follow the order and go left. Disregard the order and try to back up. Disregard the order and charge forward. Disregard the order and follow Knox. No. I'm certainly not going to follow Knox. I'm going to follow the order and go left. Either of these, forward or back, is not good. I need to make them pivot their turret and eventually their hull so that Knox can shoot them in the booty. Follow the order and go left. You pound Owen's left shoulder, and the man makes a sharp left, heading for the cover of a low, white-walled building. Just when Ulysses ceases to turn, the nearest wall explodes as the R-35 fires. Bits of stone ting off your hull. Through a deluge of white dust, you see the enemy tank pivot to follow Knox's track. Okay, so now he's going after Knox. Take a hasty shot at the French tank's side. Wait until the enemy completes his turn. Time to get out of here. I'm going to wait until he completes his turn so I can nail him in the ass. The French tank completes its turn. Its turret tracks Knox's tank as the Chicago style rattles toward the corner of a stone building. Fire now or line up the perfect shot. I'm not gonna wait. It's lining up the perfect shot on the Chicago style right now. Time to take the shot. Fire now. His cannon thunders. A round clangs off the turret. The enemy tank hardly seems to notice as it fires. The Chicago style erupts into a pyre. Then the enemy tank slews around. But Mendoza has already rammed another armor-piercing shell, and this time he doesn't miss. His cannon thunders again and serves the French up as they had served your lieutenant. Lieutenant Knox is dead. Alone, you batter at the French counterattack until an armored car is in ruins and the infantry scattered. But eventually Nelson holds up a hand, tunes the radio a little, and then activates the intercom. Sarge, we just got new orders. We're to withdraw and regroup with the 7th. About time. We're almost out of gas and bullets. Knox died for not much. The message came a little late. I'm just going to say about time. Maintain morale. About time. We're almost out of gas and bullets. Logistics very slightly increased. And that, I think... Yeah, we're finishing out the battle. We finished the prep and we finished the battle. So that is all we're gonna have for today's episode. So that's where we'll leave it. I am really excited. I'm having a ton of fun. Showing a little bit more courage than I did playing Burden of Command. We'll see if this holds once I'm in contact with the Germans, if I get in contact with the Germans. But for now, I'm riding high on some fun fights. But in any case, that is all we've got time for this episode, my nerds. I have had fun. I hope you all have had fun, and I will see you on the other side.